It's gonna be a great night tonight.
We're gonna buy the kneecap off.
Do what it do.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Filthy Football Casuals podcast. I'm your co-host, Carl. We got Tom and John in the house. How you boys doing this week? Pro Bowl's done. Super Bowl's coming up. Who's excited?
Hyped. I've been watching all the hype videos I can.
Do you think with the hype videos that with your team being in it, right? Like
Yeah.
Right. Now again, you've been here pretty. This is a regular feeling for. Like, does it
go number 3?
Yeah, 3 times in the last 11 years.
Are you feeling like? I mean, are you still just as obviously you're still just as excited, but like, I don't know. Do you remember feeling this way last year? Like, how does this equate to what you've been going through in recent postseason success with the 49ers?
Oh, last year I hated everything about this moment because we should have been there, and it was like the most tragic ending you could ask for. Of a
Literally, the rules changed in the NFL because of it.
Yeah, that's how bad it was. Only by losing in tragic fashion do you get rules to change in the NFL. That's worked for the Bills, worked for the Niners.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's so definitely different than last year. Like. I don't feel like we have a good team, like no doubt. I don't feel this team is as dominant as it was last year in a weird way, at least at this stage. But at the same time, more prepared. I don't know. It's weird, but I'm hyped either way because I get the most games possible out of my football season. Yeah. So I feel blessed.
Maximum return.
That's right.
Yeah. So we got a big Super Bowl preview planned, a lot like last year, if anyone tuned in for that. Trying to dive in some X's and O's, some details, all sides of the ball. Even some special teams, I heard. Is that true?
Yes.
Yeah, we got some, just a little snippet, but I got something.
Absolutely no holds barred. But before we dive into that, thought maybe some Pro Bowl reactions. Anybody, did you guys tune in Sunday by chance and see any of the actual live on the field?
I did not watch it live.
No, I don't really watch it live. I did watch the first skills thing live on, was it Thursday? But
yeah,
Friday, whatever it was.
I think the most memorable is probably the punt catching thing. Like, it's like the training camp thing where they make the rookies hold 9 balls and catch everything out of the jugs machine. It was funny.
I liked the long snapper competition. I won't lie. That was or like the snap it through the hole. That one was actually kind of fun
with the centers.
Yeah,
well, again, like
they're all
Kelsey's
trying
not
really
a long
hard.
snapper, so like it's not. It was like your centers, and then I think you did have like I think there was a specific long snapper.
Yeah, they did have a long snapper. I think he did actually do the best.
Yeah.
All I remember is Kelsey was just having a laugh, and then the guy after him, I don't think cared much at all. And then
yeah.
It was novel. I'll give him that. It was unique.
It was novel for sure.
But I did catch like some of the other skills competitions and stuff on YouTube, like the little gauntlet or whatever that they run, which they could do way better with that.
Like their obstacle race kind of thing.
Yeah. Some of the obstacles just weren't like anything at all. Like they're running through a piece of styrofoam. Like okay, whatever.
Yeah. It looks cool,
Yeah. Make it some actual sheetrock, and then we could talk. Put them in full pads, make them really earn it.
I'll say I tuned into a bit of the flag game, curious, just because like people got talking about the Olympics and everything with all that coming up. Wanted to see who might be out there, what that might look like. But I think even flag football is too much for the pros these days. Too much money on the line. No one wants to risk it. They're going like quarter speed. They're having fun. They're mic'd up. It's all the usual Pro Bowl stuff. But it makes me wonder how many more years are going to keep going.
Yeah, question about the flag football. Was it, from what I could tell, they weren't playing like Olympic rules flag football. It was like, it is a shortened field, but like as I understand, the shortened field in official flag football is actually narrower than an NFL field.
I would say you're probably right. Not that I've played flag or know a whole lot about it, but I would imagine Olympic is 5-on-5.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd imagine it'd be a pretty small field for that. And yeah, they shortened it, but I think it was the normal because they had it in Orlando at the Camping World Stadium.
Okay.
So it did look normal. Maybe they painted some smaller stuff on there. I wasn't paying super close attention, but guess I'll have to wait till next year.
I would like to announce that, I mean, again, I don't even know if you want to call it a highlight, but probably the only MVP that this man will ever get, Baker Mayfield, was named the MVP.
Oh, he was.
Offensive MVP of the game. Yep.
Oh, good for Baker.
For his flag football performance.
I think I saw something where he's the only Pro Bowl MVP, and like another like inconsequential award too at the same time.
He's collecting all the silly
funny.
ones. Yeah, I guess. I mean, if that's the idea, is to kind of create like a second place award almost, for these second tier guys. I think it's fun. Let them get out there and goof around.
Yeah, for sure.
Anything else going on around the league? Any coaching news you guys might have seen? Anything non-Super Bowl-y? Non-Taylor Swifty?
I mean, there's some Cliff Kingsbury nonsense.
True. We didn't get to that. I've been talking about it so much.
Yeah.
But not on the podcast. Yeah. I guess Raiders news breaking, by the way. Yeah, it's like half an hour after we ended recording last week, they announced the Kingsbury deal was done to the Raiders. And I think it was the day after they announced it fell through, and Kingsbury withdrew his name from contention. I think he ended up signing in Washington.
Yep. Yeah, he's with the Commies.
Yeah, and I can't really blame him, and I feel like that's kind of really encapsulates why it's risky to go with the interim head coach in that situation. Is because his pro network, especially a first-timer head coach, like his network of assistant coaches is not very strong. He's not going to have a lot of guys he can tap into, and then there's that situation where he was tapping North Turner's kid, that I mentioned, and then he backed out, and then Kingsbury, and then he backed out, and now they're on to their third option, supposedly. They got the guy from Chicago, Getsy, I think his name was. So they finally got a name. That's exciting for the fans. We could start kind of looking ahead and trying to speculate, but not the smoothest hiring process through all that. So unfortunate, a little crazy, but they got a few months to figure it out.
Yeah, and then a little bit of drama between the Commanders and Ben Johnson. I don't know if you saw some of that. So like obviously we know that didn't Ben Johnson didn't take the job. We know he interviewed, but didn't end up taking the job. I'm not even sure if he was offered it or not. But a little bit of mudslinging between both of them for some reason.
That's right.
Yeah. Like one side saying, "Oh, he interviewed really poorly, this and that," and Ben Johnson's defense, of course, I just wanted to run it back with the Lions. I didn't feel it was the right fit, right time, yada yada. So a little weird to see stuff like that, especially given there has been some weird hiring things, and you usually don't even see that. I think back to when McDaniels bounced out of Indy after actually accepting the job. I don't remember anyone bad mouthing him about it all that much.
Sure.
Well, what did Johnson say about Washington ownership specifically? It's they're basketball guys. They're trying to meddle too much. They don't know football. Kind of going after him. It's surprising to say, especially about a new owner too. I don't know. It's surprising.
Yeah, I mean, if you get into an interview for a head coaching job, and you're probably going to interview with the owner, but if you pick up on a vibe that he's going to be way too involved with the football process, that's certainly a red flag. I would, especially if it's your first time as a head coach, you can go, nah, because that could ruin my head coaching career entirely if that's how I start off, right?
Absolutely, but
definitely.
I'm not turning around and telling that to the media. I'm keeping that to myself. I'm not messing with the owners. There's only 32 of them. They got a lot of money and a lot of power, and weird.
And then some fun news. Nothing came of it. Fun news I saw today, though. Maybe some of it still comes of it. Apparently, for the Dallas defensive coordinator position, Rex Ryan was interviewed.
Really? He wants to come back. He's had enough at ESPN. Maybe his contract's up.
Probably. I don't recall him being terribly successful defensively his last few runs as a head coach. So Or even didn't he fall to a coordinator position right after he lost the job with the Bills, or was he out of work completely? I can't remember.
Didn't he go from the Jets straight to the studio? I thought.
Well, after the Jets, he coached the Bills for 2 seasons, I want to say.
Damn, did he? Okay.
Yeah, I remember because he bought this big old pickup truck with like the Bills plastered along the side of it, like with his first paycheck. I mean, he's
That's
nothing if not
wild.
a great hype man. I'll give him that. But
For sure.
I think you could. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say. Well, finish your thought, because there's some minor Pittsburgh news.
No, I was gonna say I think that could be a good fit. Is all just kind of like their simplified defense, like take a lot of like aggressive weapons in that front seven and just let him go nuts. Kind of way his dad did it, or not his. I was thinking Wade Phillips, but the Ryan brothers too, pretty aggressive and
Sure.
could probably make some things happen. But what's going on in Pittsburgh land?
But so, I mean, I think we kind of mentioned, talking about kind of coaching changes, and obviously, right, the big offensive coordinator change, which I'd forgotten. It was the second outside hire for the offensive coordinator position since 2001. So, like, again, I knew it was a long time. I didn't realize it was that long ago.
How many hires has that been in the last like 20 whatever?
Let me see.
5, 6.
It was Arians into into Todd Haley, which is the first outside guy, into Finkner, into who came after him before then, Matt Canada. So I guess 4 hires. So 5 internal guys, 1 being an external, and now Arthur Smith being the 6th in the last 24 years. So I guess 23 years. So anyway, just with some of that comes with some new blood, and we've finally seen, I guess, a little bit of the bleeding. We have 4 offensive coaches that we have removed, or I guess moved on from. But they're like minor roles, and again, I don't know what roles that they really do play. But we have an offensive assistant, that was his title, Glenn Thomas. And then we've also parted ways with our wide receivers coach, Frisman Jackson, our assistant quarterback coach, David Corley, and our quality control coach, Matt Tomshow. So a lot of these guys, 3 of them, the wide receivers coach, the assistant QB, and the QC guy, they were all had heavy ties to Matt Canada, and so we have, I guess, moved on from them. They have not been replaced yet. So just, we bring in a guy, and we're making the spots for him to bring in his guys. So it's not like, we are doing what our due diligence to making sure that our staff is going to match, what this new this new hiring is going to bring to our offense. So we'll see what we get.
I like it.
Seems like a lot of politics, kind of watching Pierce go through the same thing, just trying to, talking to teams. Oh, can we poach this guy? Now, is he eligible, for promotion? Oh, no, we're blocking that, denying this. And
Sure.
All sorts of that backroom stuff. But it'll be exciting when it's all said and done.
Yeah, well, kind of exciting, right? I don't think I've ever talked or even thought of what does the quality control coach for my team do? So, I mean, I just see it as there are openings, and we'll see what the fruits of that labor of putting in some new folks will end up equating to.
Fair enough.
But with that said, we have one big game coming up.
One game.
Which I haven't heard of this game. Which
Really,
one is it?
really.
It's called the Super Bowl, where the 2 best teams from the National Football League go against each other.
Sheesh.
Is LeBron playing in that one? I don't follow sports that much.
Get out of here! All these people, people saying that Super Bowl's copyrighted, and other media people can't use that term. Blah blah blah. Yeah, I don't care.
It's not.
Would LeBron make a good tight end?
Decidedly not. That's what he always says he would be. I don't know that that's where I would put him. I don't think LeBron can block. I'm just gonna throw that out there. I don't think LeBron's gonna body out a defensive end. I don't think he's gonna do it.
All he does is rebound anymore. Like, what is rebounding but blocking? Like,
Rebound is not quite squaring a guy up and popping him in the chest.
Yeah,
You
trying
box
to.
him out just from the other direction. Like,
Now, if you
very
want to play them
similar
as like a
skill sets.
Megatron type, now we might have something.
I don't know, just gigantic body, huge frame, freak athlete. Like, I don't know if he'd be the best. He'd probably be a little slow, but
Yeah,
you know,
he'd be
he'd
good.
catch
I don't know.
anything he
Yeah,
threw his
he
way.
would,
You know,
yeah. They would literally throw it 10 feet in the air, and he would go up and get it. That would be impressive.
if he could stay healthy, I think he'd be a pretty good football player. But
Put him at quarterback. That's what I want to see. I bet you he could chuck it 70 yards downfield without thinking about it.
Yeah,
From
we've
a
already
knee.
seen that. His name was Cam Newton.
Or Doc or Jamarcus Russell, or
Yeah.
there's been a lot of big arms going around. So we kind of broke up some previews by unit, offense, defense, special teams. I don't know, Tom. Do you want to kick us off? Do you want to get into some KC, or how do you feel?
Yeah,
Sure,
we
let's
can start there with the reigning champs, right?
Yeah, that's a good way to do it. There you go.
Yeah, all right. Let's get into some KC offense. So, kind of the way I went about it, I just accumulated like all of the stats, general stats that they had, just kind of, their conversion percentage, points per game, all that fun stuff. Just kind of paint a picture with stats a little bit before I dived into some film, and I just kind of want to look at when I looked at some of the film I looked at, just kind of what their tendencies were. Especially because they've changed throughout the season a little bit, to kind of figure what they do on offense, what they like to do, and then of course, because I'm biased, how do you stop them? Like what were teams doing that gave Kansas City trouble? Yeah, we can get right into it. So as we know, the Chiefs' offense has not been as high flying and quick scoring machine that it used to be in years past. But they seem to have found a new identity, even kind of last year and late into the season. Of course, perfect timing to make a run and go back to the Super Bowl, as they do. And from the film I watched, I focused on a few different games, but their philosophy hasn't changed really all that much throughout the season. It's been kind of the same philosophy. What's kind of changed is the way they execute within that philosophy. So some of the tendencies I noticed, and Carl, you may have even noticed this with your research into the Niners offense, because I know they do it a lot too. But one of their favorite formations or personnel groupings, I don't know how you want to classify it, is to overload one side of the offense.
4 strong, baby.
Yeah, putting 4 players on one side of the offense, running back, tight ends, receivers. Just to create kind of a mismatch. Of bodies, right? Not necessarily of skills, but like we've got more people over here than you do. And they do this in a multitude of ways. They'll line up with that just kind of pre-snap. They'll have it out there. Sometimes they'll line up balanced and they'll run motion to get somebody over there. Even a lot of times, like right before the ball snapped, they'll run the running back or the inside receiver to the other side of the formation, and like as they snap it, the side's overloaded. And they do this a lot. I found in the games that I watch, it seems they do it anywhere from a third to a half of their plays are out of some sort of 4-strong overload set. So they really like this, and they when they do this, I found that the play tends to go to the strong side of that formation more often than not. Almost like it feels like 9 times out of 10, that's where they're looking to make the play, is on the front side of that. So wherever those 4 dudes are overloaded, they're going to try to get to somebody that's over there. I did see throughout, they would mix it up, just to throw them off every once in a while. They'd throw it to the singled out guy on the weak side, but more often than not, it's going strong side. And they run everything out of that too. They'll run your man beaters, zone beaters, screens, run plays, whatever. Like they feel really comfortable doing everything out of that formation, it seems. So beyond that too, it seems, at least going into the playoffs, something that has kind of changed, that they've been leaning a bit more on their run game from the looks of it. their run game, from what I noticed, from what I watched of their playoff games, consists largely of a lot of inside zone runs out of shotgun, which is something they also lean on throughout the season. It's kind of like their favorite thing. But when they do run plays outside, they do seem to have more success. And I don't know if that's just because they set up the inside so much that like they get defenses to oversell and then run it outside, or if they just don't realize they're that good at outside runs and so they don't do them, but they don't have enough dialed in. I don't know. But they do seem to have a lot more success on that. And when they are running up the middle, I mean, they get yards, but nothing explosive usually. And their O-line seems to get pretty dominated by better defensive lines in that regard. Which leaves it up to Pacheco to kind of, or Edwards-Helaire to make something happen in those situations. In the pass game, obviously a little less explosive than it has been in years past.
I think Mahomes' depth of target is the lowest in his career by quite a bit this year.
Yeah, I've got some stats to get into on that a little bit. It's just overall, even on the season, just not what it was, right? And
it seems like the Tony experiment didn't work out, and
yeah, definitely not. I think he has like 150 yards this year. It's ridiculous. Which Giants fans told you so, I guess.
Yeah.
And from what I watched, it seems like the only player Mahomes really trusts to make the catch, which is all fair, is Travis Kelce. Not that he doesn't pass those other players, and he's definitely getting it to Rashid Rice a bit more as of late, but he's been getting it still to Kelce more than anybody else by a mile. I mean, to Kelce's credit, of course, he's a nightmare in man coverage, and he's also really, really good at sight adjusting his routes to place them right in the soft part of his zone, and Mahomes is very good at knowing that and, of course, getting it to him. So the chemistry between those two it's Brady Gronk levels. There's no other comparison to make. They're that good. They're very in sync. So I can't blame Mahomes for leaning on too much because he's the most reliable player you have, and that's how you win games, is get it to your playmakers, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
But so they've been the way they attack their pass game seems different because Mahomes has been throwing a lot more checkdowns, a lot of shorter passes, but it does seem like they're hunting for those big plays. They're just not there. Like they'll have extended dropbacks with long developing routes, and nobody's open. So Mahomes will choose to chuck it underneath or scramble or extend the play, something to create space, just to keep the ball moving. And that's kind of been the story of Mahomes this year, right? He's still an excellent quarterback, but he is, if there's any quarterback in the Super Bowl that's a game manager, it's Patrick Mahomes right now. Hot take, I know.
Yeah, that's a spicy one. I don't know if I agree with that. But...
Yeah.
Oh, it is hot in here.
Yeah, if there's anyone that's I mean, look, he's game managing like no one could possibly game manage because he's ultra mobile, ultra able to extend plays. Like he can do insane things, but maybe those insane things, maybe right now they just get the first down, right? They're not insane 40+ yard bomb plays anymore. They're like find who's open, take what the defense gives you, and throw the picture perfect accurate pass and keep it moving. So yeah, he's the most talented freak athlete game manager you could ever ask for. So so some stats that kind of back that up a little bit. So these are his stats from the 3 playoff games he's played in. Some advanced stats, as it were. His average depth of target is 6.7 yards, which compared to anyone in the regular season would rank 39th.
Wow.
Yeah. His deep pass percentage is 9.1%, which would rank him 37th against regular season quarterbacks. Yeah. Let's see here. His behind the line of scrimmage percentage, 21.4, which would rank him 4th in regular season, and his screen percentage is 14.9, which would put him at third. So they've had struggles throughout the season, and they seem to hit a stride in playoffs, and a lot of it's because they're just playing safe football. They are just moving the ball methodically, not taking what the defense gives you, happy to throw a check down, happy to throw it underneath, happy to just throw screens. And for the most part, it's working for them. Like, they're not putting up 30 points a game, but their defense is so good they don't usually have to.
I feel like it almost reminds me of the old New England offenses, like the Brady stuff. Like, it's hard to just take 4 yards down the field, 15-play drive, and not make mistakes that force you to kick it away.
Yep.
But Mahomes and those guys, they're doing it.
Yeah, I mean, he's got the experience. He's a solidified veteran now, right? He knows that, yes, while he would love to have big flashy plays, he can just take what's underneath and make it work. He doesn't seem to get antsy.
Gone.
Yeah. He doesn't seem to get antsy and try to force those big plays like into a tight window. Like, yeah, athletically could he? Probably, but he knows he doesn't have to take those risks. So that kind of begs the question, how do you stop the Chiefs offense? So, any guesses?
Yeah, let me tell you, there's this Nick Bosa guy. It starts there, but let me back it up a bit. And
I mean, I have some defensive breakdowns from a few games I watched. I'm curious as to what you saw, how that compares to what I watched. Because I focused on the two Raiders games and the Ravens game, just to kind of see defensively what they were doing, what was working, and I'm curious what your thoughts on San Francisco. Maybe I can compare my notes.
I'll get into it, but I step back quick.
Oh, all right.
San Fran D, 4th in DVOA on the year, 10th EPA per play, 18th in success rate, which is kind of crazy how much it varies. But I feel like it really speaks to, and a lot of people have kind of reading some analysis talking about how the strength of this team is obviously the offensive side of the ball, usually playing with leads. Defense is usually playing safe, keep everything underneath. You're going to give up a lot of yards that way. But 9th in yards per play, 3rd in points against on the year. So obviously keeping teams out of the end zone, making the plays when they count. The efficiency numbers maybe not as good, but obviously it's still a pretty good defense, I think. So breaking into this, Wilkes is the DC, obviously, but something that kind of stood out to me right from the get-go is I don't think this is his defense as much. This is Shanahan's defense in my mind. He's kind of taken a page out of McVay's book, and he's had so much turnover on the defensive side of the ball. He's kind of like, I'm doing it my way, and I'm bringing in somebody. Or it sounds like, as he loses coordinators year to year to year, it's getting tougher and tougher to find those guys he wants that knows the system well. So in this case, he brought in the guy who doesn't know his system super well and taught the defensive coordinator everything. And his job is now to pass that on to the players instead of teaching the players something completely new, which I think is kind of neat, different way to approach things. Now something is very traditional, but maybe, that pattern's changing a bit. So his defense, super base, super vanilla in my mind. Just simple, keep everything in front of them. Don't make the mistakes. Don't give up the huge play. And then don't get caught with your pants down getting too aggressive or getting aggressive at all, I think. So starting up front, they love their wide 9 fronts. I watched mostly their 2 playoff games, and it seems like they're just permanently in it. They'll have, it's very weird. So they got Young and Bosa on the outsides, and then they got Greenlaw, 3-tech, or sorry, not Greenlaw, Armstead, in there, and Hargrave at 1, and they're rotating those guys out. And they've been obviously super solid in the pass rush. I think they generated the most pressures in the league this year in the regular season. Against the run, they've been kind of so-so. Definitely capable of making plays at times, definitely getting caught with their pants down here and there. Just watching those 2 playoff games against the Lions in particular, having some trouble against some double teams, getting really knocked back off the ball. Bosa was kind of panicking, trying to make plays instead of doing his role, doing his job, and throwing himself out of position and just kind of compounding things. And it just felt like a lot of little things here and there where it's kind of like mostly sound, but there's some mistakes and it's costing a big time. So could be something to watch for there, especially this KC run game gets going. Taking a step back there, we got Warner and Greenlaw behind him. Obviously, one All-Pro and one good case for another All-Pro there. Just insanely quick, really good in the pass game, really good at stuff in the run too. good lateral quickness, good getting to the fields, getting to the sidelines, shutting down a lot of those stretch runs. They're huge pieces. And I guess one note I saw in them is they're talking about how they tend to just kind of trigger against runs, especially runs that break into the second and third levels. And they're talking about how they aren't as good against shiftier backs like a CMC or an Aaron Jones that they saw, or maybe a I can't remember the Lions dude's name, but
Gibbs.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
But comparing him to like a Pacheco, they're saying Pacheco is a lot less shifty, a lot more just kind of see air and go for it. And these guys are they defend the same way. They just kind of see space, close space. So where they might be missing tackles against elusive guys, may not be as much of a problem against KC, which is another good note for San Fran D there. I guess looking into coverage from there, looking at some stuff they could do, they're 32nd in blitz rates. I think they said below average in the amount of stunts and games they run up on the D line.
It's not surprising. We'd never blitz.
Yeah, and then 25th in safety rotations behind that. So showing something pre-snap and then rotating to another look post-snap, just trying to muddle the look for the quarterback. So they don't disguise a whole lot. They don't get crazy. They don't do the creepers, the amoebas, or any of that sort of stuff. It's very vanilla. Which is, well, to me makes a lot of sense, I think, for a regular season team, for most opponents. It's just kind of play smart, play safe, keep things in front of you, and that's it. But when you play the Chiefs, I feel like that kind of starts to go out the window. You're playing, the best quarterback in the league right now, probably one of the best to play the game. Even a team that's been stumbling, obviously, they've found their momentum, they found their answers when it matters. So, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, so I mean, you mentioned that about not giving them too much pre-snap, trying to disguise. That wasn't necessarily the case that I found when watching the film. Seeing the Raiders, who had quite a bit of success, at least late in the season, against the Chiefs, as well as the Ravens, who got off to a rough start, but definitely settled in as the game went on. Something I noticed so the Raiders game plan early in the season, earlier it was week 12, I think you first met them. The Chiefs beat you at 31-10 or something like that. It was a little rough, but I think they had a good defensive game plan because they met them week 17 on Christmas, or was it week 16, 17, and the Raiders game plan did not change defensively. It was almost exactly the same as it was the first time around. That game plan consisted of rush 4, drop everybody else into zone. The Raiders seemed to just sit in zone coverage almost the entire game. And the first game, the biggest issue I noticed was largely an execution issue, which seemed reasonable because that wasn't too long after Pierce had become the head coach. You're still kind of figuring out.
I think it was McDaniels' last one or his first, something like that. Yeah,
McDaniels got fired right after Halloween, so right, if I recall. So it was one of the
9, something like that.
Yeah, it was one of the earlier games with Pierce, and you were still figuring out your defensive identity. So there was just some guys that were just out of place and blew a few coverages. And
I think it was Peters' last game too.
Mahomes is going to pick you apart if you blow a coverage. He's going to see it and he's gonna let it rip, and that's exactly what he did throughout that whole game. Every big play was just a blown coverage. Just two guys would end up covering the same zone, not knowing who to trail, who to run with, and someone would just come wide open, and Mahomes would just see it and just burn him. But the Raiders didn't blitz a lot. They rushed 4. They kept their pressure pretty consistent. They would get quick pressure up the middle and play contain on the sides if they could. And that seemed to fluster Mahomes a bit. If you could get up the middle fast and have guys kind of setting the edge of the pocket, Mahomes didn't have anywhere to go, and he'd either take. And this was the case in the second game as well. Mahomes would take a sack or make a mistake or have to get rid of it, and the zone coverage was very good at just kind of swarming the ball. The second game is the same situation. I think the Raiders played slightly more aggressive that time around. Definitely sent a few more blitzes that were decently disguised, but for the most part, it was still rush 4, drop everybody else, and the execution was just better. Forced Mahomes into a few mistakes in that games, and were able to get the win despite the offense doing nothing. I think AOC completed 0 passes after the first quarter in that game, but the
Yep.
defense won the day.
Yeah, it's like 14 points, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was interesting to watch because they would just drop everybody, and they were fairly deep zones a lot of times, and the Chiefs would just kind of run into it. It seemed like they're still hunting for those big plays. They just weren't there against these zones, and Mahomes would just dump it off underneath, or Kelsey would sit into a soft spot and make a catch for 6 to 8 yards or something like that, and that would be it. And against the run game, Chiefs kept just running it up the middle, and it was going next to nowhere in either game, really. They had, of course, most success on screen passes and outside runs. So I think that game plan, which seemed pretty simple to me, could work for the Niners. I mean, if we like to just rush forward, not send a lot of blitzes, and run the coverage.
I think that's definitely how they're going to start. As the game situation evolves, it's funny to me. I think both these teams are like philosophically very, very similar, and built the same. They don't really attack the same ways, but they want to accomplish the same things. Hot take: teams want to score points and defend.
Yeah.
But no, more than just that. I think in terms of how they want to attack and defend the field. So I think they'll still start by just playing safe and playing smart. But if they get behind and you guys start playing aggressive, then it's going to get really weird. So yeah, I would expect a lot of just contain. Don't let Kelsey or Mahomes do his shenanigans in the backfield. But God forbid if there's a turnover or two, or the score gets out of control or something, and all of a sudden they got the lead, and you guys start trying to force something, then that's when I think the game's gonna get super interesting.
Yeah, and I noticed that in the game against the Raiders, so I mentioned that they like to play that overload look. Against the Raiders, after they got down, they kind of stopped doing that. They'd stopped doing their overload. They were in probably like a hurry up a bit towards the end of the game, of course, but that stopped being a look that they gave. They were a little more balanced offensively, like as far as personnel on either side. So I found that to be a little interesting. Just playing from behind, they had kind of a different look and were playing a little sloppier than because they were trying to force stuff, right? Trying to get back into the game.
Sure. That's what I'm reading about that 4 strong stuff, is that you can mess with the rules and kind of force things, but ultimately if you have 4 dudes on one side of the field, there's going to be not a lot of space.
Right.
You can force the completion, but it's going to be tough to get a lot of yak when there's so many bodies on that side of the field.
Right.
So
right.
Yeah, when you're behind, you got to start making chunk plays. Yeah, that makes some sense.
Yeah, and so Baltimore's game plan, they started out playing a lot of man coverage and stacking the box against KC, which helped against the run, but they were just getting picked apart on man. They were just calling man beater after man beater and marching down the field. And then once they started mixing in some more zone coverage and dropping everybody, rushing for, Baltimore also did not blitz a lot. Barely blitzed, really. They showed it a ton, but they never came. They started having success and kind of shut the Chiefs down completely. Chiefs could barely move the ball. So there's something to this rush forward, drop everybody else, and hope for the best.
Yeah, I think so. Especially just looking at their weapons. Like they got Rice really cooking. MVS, that deep threat, and Kelsey's there, but that's kind of it in their pass game. It's the 2 threats. I'm not as scared. So if I can match up and really get a couple doubles or get some brackets or just safety help, whatever you got to do to those guys, and then just single up everybody else, and I'm feeling kind of good.
Yeah, and that's something I kind of noticed throughout all 3 games. Yes, obviously there was attention to given to Kelsey, but it didn't feel like they were doubling him up a ton. They'd obviously have somebody on him, but it wouldn't be completely focused attention. The Ravens started out that way by having Kyle Hamilton basically shadow him all over the field, which I gotta say, Kyle Hamilton, actually, he pops off the tape, man. That guy is freaking everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
They got a real one in him. They didn't waste a lot of effort, either team, trying to bracket him completely. He'd end up in brackets just by virtue of everyone dropping into his zone. It's kind of how it plays out. But
yeah, I think a lot of their match rules are kind of anticipating, okay, we get these routes from Kelsey that are going to be scary, we will double him up, but it depends on what he does. We're not just going to necessarily bracket him no matter what.
Right. So it was interesting to see them in what I would consider effective game plans against the Chiefs to not try to focus all of your attention on Kelsey. He's going to get his, so let him have it, and we'll keep everything else in check.
My hot take is I wonder if we're going to see a lot of like Kelsey deep shots here because I feel like he's not particularly great at it and he doesn't do a lot of it. But
He's capable.
if MVS and everyone, if nobody else can do it,
yeah,
maybe that's the time to bust it out, hit him down the seam or something.
Which will be tough, like against the Sanford D. Like you mentioned, we don't give up explosive plays like that. That's not. It's kind of not
No,
our
but
style.
like watching Warner playing like a Tampa 2 against him or something.
Right.
I'm surprised you see him take a chance. It's the Super Bowl. Maybe he can come down with one.
I've
low percentage play.
I've seen it tossed out as an idea. I don't know if any of the coaches have considered it. I'm sure they have. Like, if you're going to match someone up on Kelsey, try to match Charvarius Ward, our #1 All-Pro corner, right? Like, yeah, you could we got good coverage linebackers, and you could probably make that work. But he's their #1 receiver. Put your #1 cornerback on him, and let the other guys handle everybody else. Which I don't hate.
Right? That is kind of scary, though, right? Like, if not, because the size mismatch, right, is just so like.
If he makes that catch, then asking Ward to make that tackle, like,
is that very? I mean, obviously he's a stud, right? It's not like in his repertoire.
I think he leads the league in passes defended or pen pass breakups. So
right, so that's what you're banking on, right? He's going to be able to
against Kelsey,
right?
right. So like, but Charvarius Ward's also less of a size mismatch than anyone else we could put on him. I don't think he's a small dude.
So I happened to peek his helmet counts for something unrelated, but it seems like he plays, I think it was left corner like 95% of the time.
He's a side
guy. Yeah, so it's like if Kelsey's not #1 to his side of the field, then I don't think they're going to be doing a lot of that.
Yeah, he doesn't move, very much like a Richard Sherman type.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I guess one other thing I didn't mention, kind of looking at the Niners personnel, their nickel versus their base package. I think that's the only kind of, apart from like their D-line rotations, the personnel thing to look for is whether or not they get their 5th DB on the field or their third linebacker. It's Thomas and Burks, I think, are the two.
Yeah, Ambry Thomas and Oren Burks.
Yeah. And I think I thought that was interesting about that is usually when they bring on their nickel corner, they'll bump him out wide and they'll bring in Lenore.
Diamador Lenore.
And they'll bring him in the slot, which I've noticed a lot of teams that do that, so I thought that was kind of neat. But
that suits their skill sets better, I think. Ultimately, there was talk about that too. It's like, if you bring Ambry Thomas in the slot and he lines up on Kelsey, that's a huge mismatch because Ambry's like 5'10", so that's not going to really work out for him.
Oh, make sure you got your linebackers around, or I guess the
safeties do work. So
yeah, I guess Burks has been hurt too. They're saying, so I'm not sure if he's going to be ready to go or what that deal is, but it's something to watch for, something to keep an eye on.
I mean, not to throw shade at Oren Burks, but there's a reason you don't hear his name a lot. So he's on our defense, and I love him, but he's not a premier linebacker, at least not yet, anyways.
Sure.
So he stepped in to replace Azeez Al-Shire, who we lost in free agency this past year. I think he ended up on the Titans, I want to say, something like that, or maybe Houston. I forget.
Yeah. Well, it's just another thing to note. I guess not having to swap personnel all the time, like keeping your guys on the field and not having to play those games will just one more advantage. No mistakes can be made. You don't have to worry about the 12th man on the field and all that sort of stuff. So
yeah, I mean it's I was a little concerned with the matchup initially before I started looking into it. It's like, man, KC just they've got it figured out. They can move the ball really effectively, and I don't know that our defense is up to the task. But after doing a little this research, I realized that yes, the Chiefs are very good. However, they're not unbeatable. We have the defensive talent to be able to counter what they like to do, I think. So
definitely. Yeah, that's what it seems to me is both sides of the ball, obviously two best teams in football right now, but they're vulnerable. They're not perfect.
Right.
So it's gonna be kind of fun how they go after each other's weaknesses or try to cover them up and whatnot. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this. John, you've been so quiet.
Yeah, no, I'll get my turn.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Again. Oh, okay. Yeah. So because I did focus on the KC defense, so I haven't had quite the opportunity to kind of. But it's interesting to kind of hear how you guys are proposing or how you've explained how those two the offense, the KC offense, and it's. I'm very curious as to what this conversation is going to sound like on the flip side, because
Kind of similar.
it's
It's gonna come down to special teams, baby.
100%. I mean, do you want me to dive into it? Are we ready to hear a little bit about the KC defense here? Is that
Yeah, let's
Yeah,
go
let's do
for
it.
it. I mean, unless
I'm
you
just-
got more
it's just-
comments, John, as a neutral observer into the KC versus San Fran offense defense deal.
I mean, what Carl, you were rolling with it, but one of the things that I found interesting that you kind of pointed out was, again, the fact that I mean, how much wide nine that those guys use, and I just wanted to point out as to, like, there's a, like, not that's like that's super based on your personnel. Like, running wide nine that frequent is not easy to do.
There's a lot of bubbles in that line. Yeah.
That's right. I mean, it's tough. Like, it sounds on paper, right? Like, just take your guy, put him as far away from the other guy so he can't be touched, and be effective on the play, right? Like, when you're playing in those and it's just I just wanted to touch on again the fact that because of the studded personnel that defense has, that really allows you to have the luxury of kind of pulling something like that off, for sure.
Yeah, you gotta have the linebackers that can fill those huge gaps you're leaving on the line.
Seriously.
Which we do. You gotta have some thumping safeties that can come down in the box quick as well. Yeah, it's a high risk, high reward kind of play, I think.
For sure.
Yeah,
So
or just-
anyway, that's
Yeah.
The other thing I did notice, and this has been a thing that Mahomes has done, I feel like, his whole career, is how far he backs up, like, out of the pocket. He still kind of does this. Like, he'll take a snap out of
He's
shotgun.
Madden.
Yeah, he'll take a snap out of shotgun and then back up an additional, like, 7 yards beyond, like, as, like, a drop. He'll take, like, 3 big hops after he takes the snap, which is funny to see. But also, if you can get a speed rush off the edge, like if you're coming from a wide nine, and you can, and no, your over pursuit is no longer an over pursuit. You're now a straight line.
It becomes so much easier.
Yeah,
so much easier to make that happen.
So he's got to be careful with that. He's gonna do it, and I wonder if we'll punish him for it.
Yeah, for sure. So, speaking of punishing, one of the things that I did not realize is Kansas City defense is, I mean, just statistically, I mean, they've had a great year, right? They have been, I mean, just look, they freaking hold the Ravens to 10 points, like, I mean, you know, and they're like just. And I'm thinking this entire time, right? You watch them on tape, and outside of they're second in the league in sacks. But like, what are they doing? Like, what, like, they've got a couple names on that, like nothing that really jumps out on paper to me, at least when it started looking into these guys, and like, how are they able to kind of make this kind of, I don't want to say nameless, but, you know, this group of guys that has been able to be this top defense, and actually from a unit, they are still the youngest defensive unit out there.
Damn.
Wow.
So I found that to be pretty freaking wild, and I'm like, and kind of how they're doing that. And what was really, really neat to me is it's kind of a couple things from what I was able to kind of decipher. So again, just a couple stats to point out. I tried to look at, you know, the unit as a whole, kind of look at what they did statistically, and try and kind of poke my way around to find how are they doing that? How are they making it happen? So again, their defensive line, pretty stout. Again, the whole Chris Jones drama from the beginning of the season. Turned out they made a solid investment in that player, because again, he led their team in sacks. He's just you know, just continued to be a stud at that D tackle. But not only that, I mean, again, they were able to hold in the regular season, I mean, the fewest points per game at 17.3 points. And in the playoffs, I mean, again, they're holding teams to 13.7 points, like being very stingy with where these points are coming from. And sixth in EPA per play at negative 0.076. And just like they going into the game, they've only allowed more than 21 points twice throughout the season. The most points
Wow.
that they've been scored on, they've never given up more than 24 points in a game. Like how like I read these stats that I did not know, and I'm like, my goodness, like what are they doing here? And the what I'm gonna boil it down to is experience. Um, they have players that have been in the system under Steve Spagnuolo for a little bit now, and he was brought on in 2019, and I feel as though he doesn't do anything really crazy in the sense that like these super exotic blitz packages or I think he's able to almost take a Bill Belichickian stance in really getting the most out of your players. And what that kind of boils down to is the fact that they have currently two very good man coverage cornerbacks coming through the Trent McDuffie and Sneed. What's his? I had
Willie
it up.
Snead, right?
Yeah,
Willie,
Willie
Snead.
is it Willie? Is that what we call?
Mhm. Yeah.
So anyway, so both of those dudes, absolute studs at running man coverage, which it turns out in an NFL, which is really pass heavy, all of a sudden when you're able to shut down potentially one or two of those guys just by locking them up, you have a solid D line, and typically we're running in they run their defense in just they stay in base like I don't the one stat that I read was like 76% of the time or something like that, which I thought was pretty impressive. But there was no I had nothing to really equate it to as to how many other teams run in base, so nothing to really dive on. But then he takes his safeties and he runs them both as basically as like free safeties, two deep safeties. So all of a sudden, you are able to have the back end of your of the field taken care of on almost every play. You are able to then have any type of like offensive threat because you've got these two incredible man coverage cornerbacks, and you just let your defensive line do the work. And that shows again they are second in sacks coming in at they got 57 this season, only beat out by the Ravens. And of those 57, 40 of them, oh God, where is my note? I totaled it somewhere. 40 of them were coming off of their defensive line.
Wow.
So it's not like they were running like these exotic things with like guys coming off the edge, things of that nature, to get those blitzes. Like they were, and it's not like they were shy away of the blitz. They blitzed 37% of the time, so it's not like they weren't trying to like make it. They weren't over committing to the blitz, but enough where when they ran it, it was effective. So, all of that said, what does that make their defense look like on a whole, right? Throughout the season, fourth against the run. I'm sorry, no, fourth against the pass. The weakness that I'm seeing, and everyone is going to continue to talk about, is that against the run, because of how they are able to, again, they're so committed to being effective against the pass and what they're using to kind of generate looks where they are able to potentially take free guys off the edge to kind of pull protections over. And again, that D line makes it work. That is where, because you are missing the bodies, again, when you've got two of your safeties that are basically committed to not being in there to stop the run, you're going to be having a mismatch typically on most of those plays. Now, what I don't understand is, right, so we say, okay, well, if the run is so good, or if their run defense is bad, and you take a team like the Ravens, who not only have a very mobile quarterback, but also have a pretty good rushing attack, who for whatever reason only rushed a total of, including with Lamar Jackson runs, I think it was 12 times.
Yeah, something like that.
So again, I think a big question is why was that rushing defense of the Chiefs not tested? I don't know. I don't know, but I can tell
In
you
Harbaugh's words, he said we just didn't get to it,
we just we
which
just
is
didn't
the
get to it.
worst non-answer you could give.
Well, here's the thing. McCaffrey is going to get to it. And
yeah.
that offensive line from San Fran is going to get to it. So I am very well. I was very impressed with kind of how they were able to achieve some of this defensive success that they've continued to see season after season, and kind of how they did it. I will say that rushing attack of San Fran, I mean that's going to be the bread and butter. Now, I would also like to point out when I mentioned how I kind of described this defense, like what sets them apart is experience. I would like so they only had 76 missed tackles, which put them at 6th in the league. So again, they're effective at playing their role. They make those tackles. And I want to point out the fact that what kind of surprised me is what their turnover differential was, because they only had 8 picks on the year.
Oh wow!
So
Wow.
what I found interesting is
Man
again,
coverage.
if you that's exactly
You
it,
can't
right?
drop
You're
or
not.
leave anything.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. So I do find it interesting as to how that's going to potentially play against not only a team that does so well, kind of like running some exotic plays on the offensive, looking at the 49ers, how are these cornerbacks and kind of how they have that defensive set up because takeaways are huge, and they're not big on it, so they can't really depend on these splash defensive plays to kind of be the difference maker in this game, at least kind of how I'm seeing it. Now, another thing that did kind of stand out to me is, again, it's important to know that, unfortunately, and I always hate kind of like, I don't think it's going to be like the biggest defining thing of what this game is, but Charles Omanahu with his torn ACL. Again, I mentioned how important it is to get those sacks out of that defensive line. He had 7 of them on the season.
It's not nothing. It's not nothing.
So that's going to be a big blow. A bit more of a blow than I would have thought had I not done this research on what these guys are doing. So I will say that I am a little nervous with kind of what that is, what that's going to turn out to be in terms of the game. But I mean, the good news for that team is the fact that they did have a first round pick at the end. So that's who is going to be. He's a rookie. And Duki Azuma is going to be playing in there, kind of in the place of. So again, not like they don't have the pedigree of a player to kind of step in. Unfortunately, it is on the biggest stage of the field. So that's going to be something that I'm going to keep an eye out on during the game, just to kind of see what they're able to do. And to kind of wrap things up, one of the things that really I think is again going to be defining is when you have how the 49ers have gotten to the Super Bowl, and again with the uniqueness of their offense, I feel like if anyone is going to be, I guess there's 2 things. If anyone's going to be equipped to figure out how to beat man coverage, it's going to be San Fran. So with that being said, I do think that this may be a really impressive opportunity for the Chiefs to kind of change things up and putting things in light that they have not been needed to do in other games. I think this could present I think they have, again, the experience and the personnel to be able to adapt to what San Fran is able to do. So that's going to be a thing to point out. And another thing I would like to point out is how good Brock Purdy is against being blitzed. So again, a team who
One of the best.
when they blitz, they make it very effective, and because of that, they don't need to overcommit to the blitz. I am very curious as to how they want to kind of set that up, because they are able to have free rushers, able to just not necessarily disguising things, but because they run so out of so much base, and again, you're so accustomed to them running in these man formations that does present opportunities to kind of have a guy coming off the edge that you weren't expecting or things like that, which we'll see how Brock and company is able to handle it. But overall, incredibly impressed with what the Chiefs are able to do, and how they're pulling it off.
Definitely. For how much money they're spending on that defense too. Like
Right.
nine rookies or something, or players on rookie deals at least. Yeah.
I'm sorry, seven players on rookie deals.
7, thank you.
Yeah. As far as starters go, anyways. Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct.
Insane.
All the money's going to Chris Jones, rightfully so.
Yeah. Man, I love Spags. I wrote my first like attempt at media anything was a breakdown on Spags' coverage like 5 years ago.
Nice.
It's a nice little throwback anytime.
It's incredible. It's awesome. Like what this guy does is again, this is my first time kind of diving into what he does from the defensive standpoint, and it was super fun to look into.
So something I noticed about KCD and the bit I watched of them is the Spags approaches it in funnily a similar way that Kyle Shanahan approaches offense. He tries to play as much positionless defense as he can, especially on the back end. Like he has no problem rotating his cornerbacks and his safeties to switch roles like at the drop of a hat. Like he loves to do that kind of stuff. Like so his blitzes may not be super exotic, but his coverages are disguised
for sure.
I found that just to be really cool. Just like, because I didn't think you could really play defense that way, and Spags has found the personnel to be able to kind of do that.
What I found really interesting is one of the things that I looked at is that I guess some folks have called in because of God, who's the basketball team that the Golden State Warriors. Where they put out that what they call like their death ball or death team or something. And so that's what they were calling I guess the 49ers offense, because again, you've got that same personnel that are just able to kind of do everything. So they've got their death ball team. And then an article I read basically said, well, conveniently, KC also does have their own death ball team that they roll with, because they are able to do so many things like you're saying based off of that same personnel and just how they mix it up for different looks. So
yeah, so to get into San Fran's offense a little bit, I think starting with the one question you kind of asked or pontificating at was if KC's run D is so bad, how come Baltimore never ran the ball or only ran it 12 times? And some bits I was reading, I guess Kansas City likes to kind of dictate what they get out of offenses. They're saying in first halves, normally they love to show kind of too high looks and invite the run, present these really weak looks. I guess against Baltimore, they're saying they did the opposite. I didn't watch the film, but I was reading basically saying they're just giving them middle field closed, stacked box, like you're going to throw the ball and we're going to beat you with man coverage. And sure enough, that's what it looked like. I guess I did watch a little bit, but every time I was kind of watching those routes downfield, those receivers were just, there was nothing, it was tough for tomorrow.
Just getting smothered.
Felt bad for the guy. San Francisco, however, I think they'd be pretty happy if they just want to invite the run the entire game. It's going to be a weird one because I don't know exactly what do you want to invite or what the least poisonous attack is there. But yeah, for the offense up front, obviously big Trent Williams at left tackle. He's kind of their anchor. He's the big guy making everything happen. Definitely the best lineman up there. Yep. I got to shout out Feliciano too. I think he's played at this point for everyone's team on this podcast.
Yep.
I guess not the Steelers, but the Bills in there. Bills, Packers, Raiders, Niners now.
That's funny.
He's been around. There's a bit of liability in the pass game. Pretty good in the run game though. He loves to pull. You'll probably see him on both sides of the field, absolutely everywhere, downfield screens. Should be a lot of fun. And then wanted to shout out McKivitz, right tackle. He's been struggling. He's probably going to be where some of that pressure comes from. Yeah. I was reading some stuff. People are saying like Kansas City might even like put Chris Jones out there, like 5 tech, 7 tech on some of those big downs, third down plays, because that's the most direct path to Purdy. But outside of pass pro in the run game, like we talked about, Shanahan loves his stretch play, his inside zone, but he runs absolutely everything. Loves to have players that can run the entire playbook. Doesn't want to major in one thing, wants to have answers to answers to answers to answers. And he's found a lot of players that are capable of it. They're not perfect. They're not going to block it up masterfully every single time. There's some sloppy mistakes in there. But it's worth it in the end because they just get so many different ways to attack teams and so many different runs. And the second, they catch defenses with their pants down, they can have an explosive run that goes, 20, 30, 40, house calls, whatever. And so I think that's why Shanahan loves it. And I definitely appreciate it as well. And it's fun to watch the skill players get involved in the run game too. Debo and Kittle in particular. Kittle is kick out. They love to get him in motion, back and forth, kind of playing fullback at times, doing the arc blocking, sift blocking, just all the different things misdirections you can throw at defenders to muddy their looks and make things complicated for them. Debo kind of point of attack, or those condensed looks, especially. It's a lot of those toss plays. You'll see a lot of that, him coming back to the linebackers or safeties.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Ayuk, not as much. We'll work on that. Yeah. One other note, I think personnel-wise, it's funny how a lot of these teams, especially for San Fran, it's basically like 10 starters, and then there's like that one spot where they tend to switch it up. So for this team, it's the fullback, it's Juszczyk, Juwan Johnson. With Debo hurt, there's a couple other players that got some time.
Jennings, right?
Jennings, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So probably see a lot of them. One stat I saw that was interesting was I think they're saying that the Niners were, let me find it. Number one rushing success at 11 personnel with Jennings on the field. While Kansas City is 31st in defending the run from 11. So a different personnel set that maybe we're used to, that 12 and 21 stuff they love so much. But Kansas City, if they try to match it up with like a nickel package, they've been pretty bad at defending that this year. So maybe more Jennings than normal this year. And then, that leaves CMC, which I don't think there's really a lot to be said, like probably the league's MVP. He can do it all. Shifty player, insanely good at setting up blocks. He knows when to go full gas. He knows when to throttle things down, set up blocks, set up defenders, pass game, protections, you name it. He can do it all. He's going to be a beast. I just can't wait to see him out there. That's the run game. Pass game. This is the team that's been featured for a few years now. I think we're all pretty familiar. Shanahan loves his yaks. Debo, Ayuk, Kittle, all three top 15 in the league in yak over expected.
Yak bros.
Yeah, kind of insane. I don't know. Do you think it's still true that Shanahan has no stop or comeback routes in his playbook?
I
started
don't
going out a
see
few
them.
years ago, but
if we do have them, we don't throw them.
Right, yeah, they're not common. But yeah, just finding ways to get to the ball to guys in space so they can do what they do best. And also really, really good at tinkering with matchups. Like I know he likes to have Ayuk is kind of his isolated like backside receiver, speedster. Debo's more of his kind of like X primary guy. But it doesn't have to be that way. If he thinks the matchups are better and they can tinker with things, or they're getting something unexpected from a defense, no problem switching it up. He trusts his guys to put them in different positions. They understand their roles, and they can get out there and execute it. So very dangerous defense, very potent defense. I didn't read you all my numbers. I forgot about that. DVOA first.
No, the
first. Success rate
numbers.
first. Yards per play first. Points per game third.
Oh no!
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, I don't know how they're going to cope with that.
Grubs.
Pretty good offense. Kansas City's got their hands full because I don't know. I think at the end of the day, if it were me, I would just play safe. I would say run the ball, whatever. Let's make this an 8-possession game. Maybe you fumble it once or twice and things get weird. Because it's Spags, though, and Spags, this year, he's been a lot less zany and weird. But it's the Super Bowl, man. He's got something funky.
That's what
he does.
What he has to do. He's going to have to do for this game.
I don't know if he's just going to be sending six the whole time or rotating safeties like mad. Or I don't know what it's going to be, but I just expect the unexpected is kind of my mantra at this point out of their defense.
It's funny, John. You mentioned Spags likes to try to dictate what the offense does with like the looks he gives you, but I feel like that's exactly what San Fran tries to do with the offense. They try to dictate what you're going to do defensively with the personnel that they put out there and the formations that they show you. Man, what a chess match this is going to be to watch. Like, I honestly think the KC offense versus San Fran D battle might be a little boring compared to what we're going to see on the other side of the ball.
Yeah, one's gonna be vanilla ice cream, and another one is gonna be just fireworks just going off in your face. Like that's like not even in the same stratosphere of each other.
Yeah. No, it's shaping up really well. I'm getting real excited.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's gonna be super fun.
You also said Purdy against the blitz. I think he's number 2 in passer rating against the blitz, right behind Lamar on the season. So he's very. So it's almost like, what do you do, right? If he's that good against the blitz, if he has time and you don't get to him, he's also gonna probably burn you. Like,
Sure.
I think honestly, you got to go after him. Just watching,
have to, though.
especially
Yeah.
some of those Detroit games. Like I joke about it a lot, but like he's made some aggressive plays, like some picks that got dropped by the defense. You know, like quarterbacks get away with that stuff. It happens.
Sure.
But some of those plays he tried to make were like, oh my god, it was a little scary. So if I can enforce some of those, and just maybe the defense makes a play, or maybe that oh my god, you know, tips a little way. Like that's what I'm thinking as a defense, but it's risky. You know, it's definitely scary.
Yeah,
Well, and then
it's definitely more like we mentioned against the blitz, he's number 2, right? But a blitz is easy, right? A blitz, you just chuck it over to Christian McCaffrey, who's sitting there waiting in the flat because you just blitzed and he's wide open now. What you're talking about is pressure. If you can collapse the pocket on him with your dudes, that's when he's going to make the mistakes ultimately, as opposed to, you know, send a free rusher, fine, he'll hit the hot route because there's always hot routes in Shanahan offense, it feels like.
Yeah, they talk about his mental process. Like he knows, okay, if this guy comes, that guy comes, my hot's here, I'm going there. Like he's very quick with it, knows what to do, but inside the pocket doesn't have that kind of Brady feel for it, I guess. Like just knowing, oh, my guy's losing it here. I got to step up. I got to drift left, whatever.
Right.
And compared to Mahomes, possibly, he's pretty good at that. We'll probably see it once or twice.
Yeah, more often than not, what you'll see from Purdy is, you know, pressure's coming in. He'll just take the hit. He'll get the ball out and just get slapped while he's getting the ball out. And more times than not, the ball goes where it needs to go. But that's kind of what you need to do, though. You need to just like collapse him.
Yeah, affect him. Yeah, and he's definitely not the biggest playmaker. And yeah,
I will say, well, as we were just talking about, like not just the blitz, but just kind of like formations and dictating kind of like what you're seeing. I did read in an article that I was just kind of like, huh, like this. Let's see how this is definitely, I think, something we're gonna have to keep an eye out for. Is, again, the Niners are number 1 in rushing success rate with 3 wide receivers on the field. Okay. The Chiefs rank 31st defending against that look.
Love that.
So I feel like now we had mentioned kind of like talking about looks, things of that nature. I am very like Spags is gonna have to have something to deal with that, because I think if it's that apparent that is a weakness, right? I see no reason why the 49ers wouldn't exploit it. And then how do we make it look like that we still have this weakness, and then we kind of overcompensate for that? So I don't know what you're going to do and to kind of address such a disparity between the success and failure on one side of the versus the other. But that was just another look that I found to be pretty interesting to kind of keep an eye out on, just in kind of who's dictating what and what we're gonna try and, you know, see out of it on our end.
Yeah, and so, you know, you mentioned between KCD and San Fran offense, KC not super turnover heavy, not exactly ball hawks, right? They're pretty low on that end. On the flip side, the Niners led the league in interceptions with 21 on the season. Very, very ball hawky. So, granted, Mahomes doesn't make a lot of mistakes, but if he does, Niners the team you trust to take advantage of that. So, like, turnovers could end up being this, like, dictating the way this game swings. Like, one turnover from either side could end up breaking the whole game ultimately.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, I'm thinking just run the ball and keep it close until someone has to punt or that turnover happens, and then all of a sudden they're like, okay, it's panic mode for the opposite team. Like we have to make this up somehow, and then that's
You say that too. It's like from these breakdowns we've done of the other offense, I kind of trust San Fran in the panic mode more than I trust KC. Looking at the way KC's offense has played this season, they haven't played from behind a lot, but when they have, they usually lose.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's I mean Kelsey's a freak, but they don't have a lot of like must go-to weapons apart from Mahomes. Whereas like San Fran, like they can even run the ball when they're down. Like they're so damn good at it.
Yeah, I
Like
think
nothing. I feel like
our
nothing comes off the table even when they're back.
right, we were down 17 to the Lions at the half. In the second half, our run percentage was still higher than our pass percentage, which is insane that we were that committed to the run and still made the best comeback in NFC Championship history. It's wild.
That is wild.
Shanahan's been here before. He knows not to abandon the run if it's working. So
Yeah, for sure. What about
um,
special teams?
yeah. I was gonna say we got another phase of the ball to kind of get into.
I've looked 0% into it, but I'd love to hear about it.
I will say, if we recall, last year in the Super Bowl, special teams was the deciding factor in in the Kansas City Chiefs winning that game. If
It
you
was a
don't
big
remember,
play.
one Kadarius Toney returned a punt all the way down to I think like the 2-yard line, setting the Chiefs up for the go-ahead score that they desperately needed. And then there's no looking back after that. That was kind of what turned the tide in that whole game, because it seemed like the Eagles were kind of controlling the table, and hey, special teams flipped it. So let's not count it out as we get into the details here. It could be a difference maker. John, I believe you had KC special teams. Did you not? Did you take a look at that?
Did I?
I mean, I got into San Fran special teams, so I can go over that real quick.
What? So I guess I misread my assignments, and so no, I have nothing. We're gonna find you something right now, though.
All right, special teams are pretty simple. I did not watch any special teams film. I have respect for myself. In my time. Special teams matters, but come on. That's nobody's really watching the special teams. That's when you go get another slice of pizza or beer or something, and because you don't want to miss the commercials, right? So that's you go as the punts happen.
They're on YouTube already. They don't matter. You can watch them all right now.
Oh boy.
There you go, John. Kansas City 4th in PFF special teams grade.
Kansas City is 4th.
Yes.
Okay.
What's their DVOA? You know that?
I have no idea.
Because I can tell you the Niners DVOA, it's 25th in special teams.
Not good.
Not great. But I mean, looking at the raw stats, they're not that bad either. I don't think anyone was like completely atrocious on special teams this year to like 25th while like sounds bad. It's like there wasn't a whole lot of special teams league wide like going on, it seems.
You can't return kicks anymore, so it's really just punts, it feels like.
Yeah. So the Niners, of course, have 0 punt returns, 0 kick returns on the season. Our return game is super vanilla, super average. I think we don't even have any returns over 30 yards, not a single one. Oh no, we do. We have one that was 34, but that was like our only one. I think everything else was sub 30. We barely even returned it though. We had 20 returns on the season total, which is nothing. Punt returns, we had a little more with 34 returns, but that was tied for 5th most actually. And 13 of those were fair catches. Averaging 8 return yards though. Like that's nothing to see there as far as Niners punt and kick returns. Kickoffs just as unexciting, honestly. We had 32 returns total on us, but only averaging 23.3 yards, which is fine, right? Like it's just average is just less than a touchback, so not a big deal. Nothing to really be concerned about there. Let's see here. Punt wise, our net average or punt net is 42.6, which is pretty good. That's including the punt yards and the return yards. But we were We only had 52 punts on the season, which is like the third least. So we don't punt a lot. It's score or nothing.
Sure, that's funny.
Yeah, don't expect a whole lot of those, I don't think.
Yeah, we only got returned down 22 times for a total of 220 yards, so an average of 10 yards a return. So really nothing. Like I said, we're 25th DV away, but it's not like we're getting burned at all in these returns. 10 yards is I can live with that, right?
Yeah, that's certainly not terrible.
The only place there's some concern is in our field goal kicking. We of course drafted Jake Moody notoriously, I believe in the third round, and everyone gave us a bunch of shit for it at the time. He's been pretty good all season mostly. He's made 98.4 of his PATs. I think he missed one all season. However, he's 84% field goal percentage. However, I'll say that which was 19th in the league. He's only kicked 25 field goals all year, which puts him at 30th in attempts. So we don't kick a lot of field goals. So he's 21 for 25, which of course is 84%. So he's missed 4 on the year, which if you missed 4 and he had kicked, league average, which is something like high 30s in the 4, like that's a pretty decent percentage. So I'm not overly concerned. Obviously, some of his kicks have been crucial. A couple of his misses against the Browns, we did miss the one that would have been a game winner. But overall, I'm not all that concerned. He missed one in the playoffs, but ultimately it wasn't a difference maker. It was early on in the game, and he made all the rest of his kicks after that against the Lions. So, that's the only thing to really watch for Moody is maybe he misses a kick that could end up being crucial, but we don't ask him to kick a lot, so a little bit of that is on us. So he doesn't have a lot of practice.
I will say, what's the line on this game right now? Do we know what?
Checked it was Niners -2.
It's 2, yeah.
It's 2. All right, you bring up your kicking game.
Yeah.
And you want to guess what the Chiefs were at? 94.3% on their kicks, kicking 33 out of 35.
There you go.
So I mean, we want to draw. I feel like that could vary. I mean, according to Vegas, there's a 10%. There it is, right there. Is what you're looking at. So, I will say the Chiefs were 16th in what they were able to do with punting the ball and kick returns. They were running at only 20.1 yards per kickoff return, putting them at 27th in the league. So a little concerning with field percentage. Now, again, like you said, the kick returns out of the Niners, pretty good. So we'll kind of see, how that now. Again, the kind of nobody really runs it on, and we just kind of kick it through anyway. So not right. I mean, I don't know. Take it for what it's worth.
Yeah.
But and then again, the Chiefs averaging 9.3 yards per punt return, though, kind of putting them very middle of the pack for kind of those punt returns. So again, I feel like not really a deciding factor on either side of the ball. With again a huge highlight on what we are going to be able to do, kind of in that kicking game, kind of seeing where things kind of boil down to.
Yeah, don't expect special teams to be a difference maker, but don't rule it out. You never know.
Don't rule it out.
Whatever team gets sloppy on it could spell disaster. But usually this stuff doesn't come into play. So if there's any prop bets on that on special teams, don't take them. It's not worth it.
I think I had one thought that was interesting for San Fran that I always kind of assumed that teams that only use a small amount of personnel on offense and defense, they don't do a lot of rotations, would have a huge advantage in special teams because they can keep all those extra 10, 15 players and dedicate them only to kicking.
Mm-hmm.
But San Fran's still pretty bad this year.
Yeah, that doesn't make a difference.
Well, I mean, I feel like we've been saying it since that Pittsburgh game we went to. Like they're
Oh, yeah.
obviously they won the game, but yeah, a few big returns there, and all year it's been kind of a factor. Just any thoughts to why, or is it a personnel thing, or just not a priority, or?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't tell you who our special teams coordinator is. Yeah, it's. I know we had some of our role players were special teams like kind of guys that we did not bring back, like Aziz Al-Shire I mentioned, who was like our third linebacker that we'd bring in a lot of times, was also one of like our special teams like aces. It's not there. Talanoa Hufanga also played a fair amount of special teams, and we lost him early in the season, so that could also play a factor. He is an excellent gunner, just because he's fast as hell and hits like a truck. So
kind of his personnel sounds like.
Yeah,
Sure.
that could be playing a factor. Like I said, like the stats aren't concerning. Like, yeah, you might get a few more yards, but we haven't had anything returned on us all season either. So we did kick 2 kickoffs out of bounds, leading the league with 2 out of bound kickoffs. Yeah, nobody else had 2. But I mean, I don't know. My philosophy as far as what you should be doing on kickoffs nowadays, just kick it out. Just kick it out of the end zone.
Yeah,
I mean, what's the difference? Do, right? Like, why take the risk? Like the 25-yard line, yeah, but is the 25-yard line really that bad? I don't think so. Not if you have a defense as good as the Niners. You shouldn't be that concerned about that 5 yards. But we don't kick it out of the end zone all that often, which is weird to me. But whatever. If you need a new special teams coordinator, give me a call, Kyle. I'll do it.
Yeah. Bring him up. He's ready. The man is ready.
So I think unless you got more to say on KC special teams.
No, I mean that just about wraps it up for me.
Do we want
to final predictions?
Yeah.
You got something else in mind?
No, final prediction is where I was headed.
All right, I'll go.
Well, no. I am the
after everything you've learned tonight.
I feel like after everything I've learned, and as someone who has solidified that I will be the league for the Field League Football Casuals all-time picker, I feel like I have earned the right to go first.
Can't argue with that.
And I mean, again, great discussion. I've enjoyed kind of hearing a lot of the ins and outs of things that I did not hear from, I don't know, some of the other folks, some of the other media that we're consuming. But I think it kind of boils down to, you know, what we've been looking at all year. It's unfortunately not very sexy. I feel like what we've seen out of Kansas City this year has been impressive. But I don't think that they have the same quality, the same complete roster that San Fran has. And to me, that's kind of like what it boils down to. To have that many all-star players on both sides of the ball is to have Brock Purdy having his coming out party and just emerging into the quarter, you know, I don't care what you say. Nobody thought that he was going to have the season that he had this season after what he did last season. Like, you know, was it a fluke? Was it not? And then all of a sudden, I mean, he just kept getting better and better and better. And with all that being said, give me San Fran. You know, I saw them beat my team the very first game of the season, and I feel like it's now only fitting that that's who I'm going to be cheering for to end all of the Taylor Swift drama for the NFL, and I will be incredibly ecstatic for it.
Oh, it'll be nice to put to bed for a few months. I think, honestly, after I spent, it feels like the entire day talking about how good these offenses are and they can run the ball at will and it's going to be whatever. One last thing I just looked up. I mean, these teams score, I think it's on average like 40 to 45% of their drives. Yep. And that's field goals and touchdowns too. So it's not like they're absolute gods. They don't have cheat codes on. So I think you know, there'll be a lot of points, but maybe a few punts in there too. So I think San Fran's definitely going to take it. I just think they have more weapons on all sides of the ball. Mahomes, yeah, I give him the edge. I think he's the better quarterback, but he doesn't have enough pieces, I think, to make up that difference, even with the experience and all his talents. So I think San Fran wins it. I think they cover it. They probably win by like 5 or 6, I'm thinking.
Yeah, like I said, the initial matchup, not crazy about. I mean, I hate big game rematches personally. Just a lot of anxiety attached to that because, man, seeing it again, like if you can't pull it off, it's just like it's that same heartbreak, like all over again.
Sure.
You don't like it. I mean, and these championship games give me no choice but to have a Super Bowl loss replay in my head here. So. After studying the Chiefs and hearing what you guys had to say about it, the Niners and obviously I've been watching Niners all year, so none of that was all too unfamiliar to me. But these are two very good teams that have found their rhythm, found their identity throughout the course of the year, and I think this is definitely going to be a dogfight. You couldn't ask for two teams to be better prepared for this moment. Given the coaching and the players that they have. That being said, by this time next week, the San Francisco 49ers will be Super Bowl champions.
Let's go! The confidence.
This is the moment. This is it. This is what we've been preparing for 4 years since we lost to the Chiefs, building up a bigger and better roster to be able to go back and do this. And like George Kittle said at the end of that game, I will be back, and I will be back with a motherfucking vengeance. And this is it.
Hell yeah, we love it. Go Niners.
Go Niners.
Yeah. I think for us, that'll probably wrap it up. I'm sure we'll do a post-game show sometime next week for you guys. Next Wednesday, probably.
Yeah, let's do it.
So plan on that. And then I guess apart from that, enjoy the game. Enjoy Usher. The halftime show.
Yeah, we'll break down our favorite commercials next week.
Yeah,
fair the commercials. We're gonna have a good time. Yeah, looking forward to it. All right, take care, everybody. Enjoy the game.
See ya.
We'll see ya.